it doesn't matter what stage you are in your career, whether you are just starting or whether you are, let's say, towards the back end of your career. Everybody goes on about how important networking is. Everybody talks about networking. And in this video, I will basically be breaking down the importance of networking, but also how to do it properly and some mistakes that people make. So, first things first, our first question is, how important is networking? Very. All right. Networking is extremely important. And why is it so important? Well, basically, networking is the ability to create or to get opportunities without looking, if that makes sense. That's the core of networking. Now, I think a lot of people they do networking wrong. They look at networking from a very rushed thing. So I think a lot of people when they try to network, it's because in the short term they want something. So what they'll do is they'll hit up people that they know and they'll basically harass them for an opportunity, which is not the right way to go about things. How you need to go about things in networking is understanding that the relationship builds over time. It is a little bit like an investment. You know, you don't just put $100 into crypto and the next thing you know, you're a billionaire. All right. These things compound. There's times where it looks like you're wasting your time. There's times where it's going to look good, but then nothing comes through. That's the whole point of networking. And I think a lot of people, they get this wrong idea of networking where, they'll ask somebody for an opportunity. The person will not have anything available in that time, in that moment, but then they'll just that person will then take a step back and not speak to them ever again. I think that's horrible. I think that's a waste of time. And I think that's how you develop a reputation for being kind of like someone who's just clinging on to people and, everything feels very transactional at that point, and you don't want that. So you need to understand first and foremost that networking is very, very important, but how you do it is even more important. So the reason why I would say networking is so important, the core reason is that, again, opportunities come without asking, basically, or without looking. So one thing I've noticed in recruitment is that, particularly from mid-tier to senior roles, a lot of these roles happen from referrals or people that know somebody and they tell them about the opportunity. Very, very rarely these jobs come about because they because they put out a job ad and the right applicant comes through. That very rarely happens with these bigger jobs. What I noticed that in that anyways was that it was always about the recruiter may know somebody and they reach out to them and say, look, we got this opportunity. Or it may be someone from the business themselves and be like, hey, look, I have this good person, I've heard good things, blah blah blah, let's send them through. These things happen, and it's very, very important that you keep all your relationships as professional and respectful at all times. There are many times in senior roles, for example, where somebody will be stuck at one company and they'll hate it, and their old coworker may be at a new company, and that new company may say, hey, look, we need somebody who can do XYZ. That coworker will be like, look, I actually have a friend of mine who's looking for a role at the moment. She's done X, Y, and Z at her last job. Would you be interested in having a conversation? And they'll say, yeah, sure. Present the resume and they have a chat. Next thing you know, they're hired. And that whole thing, they didn't have to go through a recruiter. They didn't have to put out a job ad. They didn't have to do anything. It was word of mouth. It was good associations, good relationships, and the right time. That is how networking happens, and that's why it is so important. So the best ways to do this is to build good relationships and do it properly, professionally, respectfully, and be patient. Okay? Now, how do we do this properly? It's all well and good for me to point out what to do. It's not good if I don't tell you how to do it. All right. So the number one tip I will say, and this is something that I've picked up as well from my own time working in recruitment and working with candidates, is to just not be transactional. Okay. I know that's hard. I know it's very tempting, and a lot of you may be thinking it's the right thing to do to reach out to somebody and ask if they have an opportunity straight away. For me personally, that puts you in a very weird box where it's kind of like, we don't have anything available at this time. We'll keep in touch if we have something else available. Thanks, but no thanks. And 9 times out of 10, what that does is you close the book before it was even properly opened. Okay. So what you need to do is basically reach out to people, have warm conversations, ask them questions, ask them, how are you finding the job market? What are you looking for in an ideal candidate? All of these types of things, just try to learn, try to get information so you're familiar with them, they're familiar with you, you're respectful, you're insightful, and they remember these things, these people. Now, who do you actually reach out to? For me personally, if I'm networking, the top three types of people I'm going to be networking with are going to be recruitment agencies, hiring managers of companies that I want to work for, and senior/junior people in companies that I want to work for as well. That last one is to build relationships in the industry for people that have the same job as you and people that you want to be like one day. And those types of people, what I would be asking them is just basically, how'd you get to your position? And if you were in my position, what would you do? Just little things like that. Then the hiring managers and recruiters, I would be reaching out. I would be asking, if you know of anything available at the moment, even if you don't want to go about it from that perspective, don't sell yourself straight away. Just offer having a conversation with them to learn more about the industry, to learn more about an ideal candidate, to learn more about, what types of roles you take on and what they find works and what they find doesn't work, etc., etc. Try to have those types of conversations rather than just, here's my resume, give me a job, okay? What I've noticed as well, though, is that through networking, when you actually reach out to somebody directly, it already puts you above 100 random job applicants, And actually, a good story about networking came from, I would say, my old job, actually. My first recruitment job is we put up a position for a contract role, basically. And we had about, let's say, 70 to 80 applicants through the actual database, or through Seek, I should say. And no one really ticked the box initially. Anyways, we eventually hired somebody for the role, but in that list of people that applied, there was a person that messaged me directly and my director directly on LinkedIn. He basically said, hey, look, I heard you're looking for this role. I'm currently looking for these opportunities. I have done A, B, and C. I know for this job they're looking for that as well. Could we have a conversation, talk a bit more about it? Okay. So what he did right already from a networking perspective was he personalized himself. He put a face to the name and he built the relationship before we even looked at his resume. That he's already, basically, I know more about him than everybody else that's applied. That is a great first step when trying to build a relationship. It doesn't have to necessarily be about landing this job because he may not be the right person technically. But what he's done now is he's put a face to his name and he's built a relationship. He's started conversation, which is so important, I believe anyways. So we accepted the invite to have a chat. I had a call with him. We had a good conversation. We realized that obviously he wasn't exactly what we were after for this specific role. But fast forward 2 months, we had a new opportunity. We put him forward and he actually went on to have an interview with the client. Now, did he get the job? No. But the principle is there, is that if you stand out early and you're patient, new opportunities will arise. And that's all you have to do, is just put yourself out there, have warm conversations, show your interest, tell people where you want to be, and be patient and understand that when that right opportunity comes about, because you've done all those right things earlier on, you will be rewarded eventually, okay? These are just some things to think about in building relationships with your networking skills. I hope you guys have got some value from this video. If you guys do want to work with me on a one-to-one level, click the link below for a free consultation. Happy to have a 30-minute chat with yourself and we can work out your goals and find out exactly what you need and what you want to do. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. These are just some couple of tips to improve your networking skills and to understand the importance behind it altogether, so you can take these skills from day one of your first full-time job and apply them forever. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Take care. See you guys next time.